So let's chat a little bit about the plan for this amps circuit as of right now. So I just got back from doing a gear hang with a buddy who has a 1974 Super Lead. He believes it's all stock, never been touched outside of a master volume, which he said was a post-phase inverter master volume. So we were able to compare these two amps through the same cab side by side, just so I can get an idea, right? Because I mean, you expect every amp, even with the same model, to have some differences, but I have no reference point. I've never played a stock Super Lead. I've never played a stock Super Bass. So I just don't have a good idea of what those are supposed to sound like and where this fits in amongst that. So it was very, very interesting. You know, my main takeaway was the amp sounds great, which is good news. Definitely some room for improvement, I think. Namely, a couple things that we already knew. So the first really is just the master volume. The master volume on this, it's really less a master volume and more a reduction in preamp gain knob. So this amp, how it's configured right now with the big bright cap, the stock value bright cap on channel 1, basically as soon as it's on, it is very, very gainy. Although this amp had noticeably less gain than the Super Lead that my friend had. No idea what that's down to. I actually have the amplifier here, so I intend on digging into that a bit further. Could be tubes, could be something else. I'm not sure. More to come on that. But this amp had a nice amount of gain, not too little by any means, but it does have basically zero clean. It's straight into gain right off the bat. This amp is also insanely loud without a master volume. It is just shockingly loud, frankly, shockingly loud. And so at home, I messed with it a little bit. This master volume, you know, you can turn it down and get it to more reasonable volume, but you have to basically dime the gain to get it anywhere close to what it would be otherwise. So I can see a reason why people would prefer this over the post-phase inverter. A part of me does really like that, but it does mean I am 100% reliant on having the Fryet power station with me, which I did bring and play through this, and it sounded great and really, really did a good job bringing the amp level down. But that's a whole other, you know, thing weighs like 20 pounds. It's a whole other, you know, set of things to carry with me whenever I want to play this amplifier, which at a gig situation, you know, a fairly legitimate gig is not a big deal. I'm going to be packing a lot of stuff anyways. But at home, it's just kind of a hassle to have to move stuff around and do all of that. So at this point, I'm leaning pretty heavily towards replacing this pre-phase inverter master volume with a post-phase inverter master volume. So that's kind of the biggest thing that stood out to me. Other things there, you know, it seems like perhaps there's some room for improvement on the normal channel. It's just very, very dark, woolly, which I know is atypical for these things, but it feels like I can maybe get a little bit more out of it. Perhaps a really small bright cap on it or something, just to give it a bit more range. The actual channel doesn't really do much until it's on about 5 as well, versus the bright channel, once it turns on, it's just instant loud and extremely bright and a lot of gain once you hit 2, as I've shown in the Auxbox demos. This thing is roaring. So yeah, just to balance those a bit better. And the amp sounds dead silent. I don't honestly notice any issues from the filter caps here. There's zero hum, zero sign of anything. It sounds very healthy, which is great. And yeah, it was awesome to hear the amp. Didn't record anything, just a, you know, impromptu hang with a friend, but we will have some proper recordings probably at his warehouse where we can really turn it up and do all of that. So that'll be something in the future, but overall, good news for the amp. But let's continue working on it. Also, the recent stuff we did, the impedance selector, that worked totally fine. No issues there. The standby switch over here, the amp had no problems, never turned off on us, never did anything funky like it was doing before. So I'm pretty certain that's been fixed. I will be playing it a lot more before the gig just to confirm fully that I can trust it. But so far, so good. So with that, let's go ahead and flip it over and start taking a look at what we want to do next. Probably that post-phase inverter master volume. But we got some stuff to figure out if we want to do that. There's some additional repercussions, and we got to move some wires around and whatnot. So let's get to it. First and foremost, let's just take a look at the existing master volume in the amplifier and what is needed to return it to stock. So basically what's happening is you've got the wiper of the treble pot, and that's going to the master volume over here, and then the other lead is going here. So removing this, you would have a wire, brown wire from here, the wiper of the treble pot going under the board through this hole connected to this turret. So this is essentially just interrupting that with this pot acting as basically a variable resistor. So that's all that's happening. Extremely, extremely simple. And yeah, pre-phase inverter, it's just kind of ends up reducing the gain, which is cool. But for me, functionally, I think I'm going to require a post-phase inverter. So we'll just have to get a wire from there to there. No big deal. Now the replacement, I would go with this. This is a dual gain 250K pot here. We would be doing the LARMAR style, which I've done on a few amps of mine, as well as customer amps. And it always impresses me, to be honest. It's not perfect, but it does pretty good. So basically what we're going to be doing is, again, 250K audio. And we've got two 2.2 meg resistors here. And then we've got the leads of the resistors bridging these two terminals here. And on the wiper is where the other point where they're connecting. You can see that. I just have it mocked up here just because I bought these for this exact purpose. Already had this mocked up. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward actually. So you've got these two resistors right here in between the phase inverter coupling caps. These should be 220K according to the schematic. This is the value, I guess, for 6550s maybe. I'm not totally sure what these are doing to the tone, but basically you'll be removing these two resistors, and again, imagine these should be 220K resistors, and in place of those, you can just look at it as the two different pots. So this is one 220K resistor, this is one 220K resistor, and these 2.2 megs are just acting as safety resistors. They're actually changing the value of the pot down to about 220K, and they're also giving some resistance if the pot were to fail. So it's backup, because if you lose any connection here, you lose bias, and that's when you blow your tubes and potentially worse. So yeah, very, very important. That's why it's really important you add in these safety resistors. Now the connections are pretty straightforward. So basically you're gonna have one of these. You can see I use the resistor leads to just connect those two. One of those you'll have a wire connected to right here, kind of the point of the V. You'll have the wiper of both pots going to the two different grid connections. In this case, it would be this green wire right here and this orange wire right here, green and orange. So basically, I would just heat shrink those off since I don't want to mess with them in case I want to return it to stock or go back to this in the future, and run new leads from the wipers of this down to where those existing leads are going. And then the last but not least, you've got these two connections on the master volume, and those would go to here and here respectively, making sure you're keeping them straight. So say orange is the top pot, so this connection would go from here to here, and then this wiper would go where the orange is going now. So fairly straightforward and not too bad to install. Should work out pretty well actually. I'm curious to hear how it sounds, but it sounded really good to my friends, so I'm very optimistic. And yeah, it is too late to go ahead and do that tonight, so we'll pick this up probably tomorrow evening. But that's the plan, and feeling pretty good. So we'll end here and pick it up in the morning. Got a lot of work to do, so let's go ahead and get started. First, we'll desolder the existing master volume pot, remove that. And I do think after considering a bit more that we will swap this volume pot over here to replace this one. We did a lot of work to get that new one in there, but that's okay. Let's get this done right. Better look at the pot back here. We can see it's a 1 meg audio. This was installed in 1973 per the service sticker and the previous owner. And you can see 137 is the CTS code, 7303 is the third week of 1973. So this lines perfectly. And I wanted to keep this in the amp just because it's part of the history anyways. So I think that'll be a great spot for it. So let's go ahead and do this wire from here, the wiper of the treble pot, back over to this terminal. Let's do that first. Fortunately, I don't have any brown wire, and I'm just not really going to worry about getting brown wire right now. Maybe at some point I can find some, but for now, we'll just go ahead and use some basic wire I have on hand, especially just to get this ready in time for the gig. Beautiful, that's been restored to stock. So now we can go ahead and move on. While I have the amp facing this way, I think I'll just go ahead and remove this volume pod and swap this first, and then we'll move over to the master volume. Awesome, so that's all done. Let's go ahead and just plug it in and make sure this is working correctly, and then we will go ahead and move on to the master volume. But yeah, this looks great. Very happy so far. Well, that was pretty interesting. I hope you guys felt it was interesting as well. I'm not going to say my takeaways yet because I want to listen back to the audio and really hear kind of what was coming through recorded. But yeah, just listening to it while I was, letting the loop play and adjusting the volume knob to go around, sounded good. Basically, all of them sounded pretty good to me. They all had their merits and qualities. Definitely, and this is kind of something I know academically, but haven't really heard in practice playing with it. Once you get to a certain point, the bright cap, you start, it's not just top end, it's more mids coming in and all of that. And you saw that with some of the bigger bright caps, I thought, or at least that's what I heard just listening to it. Something like a 750 picofarad, to me came across at least brighter than the bigger ones, just based off of that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then just for fun, well, before I go any further, what value I'm going to go with, I'm probably going to go with back to the stock value. I just was curious more than anything, but my intention was to keep it at the 4700 picofarad or somewhere thereabouts. And then just for fun, I decided to go over here to the base channel, or sorry, the normal channel, and see kind of what a small bright cap would do here. I experimented with a couple of values off camera and then decided to just record no bright cap versus 100 picofarad, which I actually felt like was a really nice improvement. Just added in a little bit more top end, still pretty full, sounding channel, much fuller than the channel 1 here, the bright channel, but it didn't, completely lose all top end like I felt like it kind of does stock. So I think I will be putting in the 100 picofarad bright cap in there just to give it a little, it's just a touch, at least that's what it sounded like to me. Fairly subtle, but not so subtle that it's not worth doing. So anyways, feeling pretty good about all of this. So now we can kind of move on to the master volume and get this thing all dialed in. All right, now let's go ahead and transition over to the master volume circuit. So let's go ahead and grab our dual gain pot. And we can go ahead and start with some of these connections. So this will be like this. Make sure clearance is fine, which it is. So we'll go ahead and remove these 100K bias leak resistors real quick. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and run the lead going from here to here. And I'm not going to be able to do it from under the terminal itself here, but what I can do is squeeze it in between right here, pop it out so it's just running just along here to here, so it's pretty inconspicuous. And then I can do the same for the two feeds here and here, going here and here, just going through these existing holes. I got skinny enough wire, and I actually have green and orange. So that'll actually work out pretty well. Now the lead's running over here. We'll have to play with that a little bit, but at least I can get these to look fairly clean. Wow, okay, that was like fishing. So we've got the orange and the green through. These are going to go to these two terminals right here and here, if you can see those. And I think what we'll do is twist them. So I want to give myself enough room, and then also just try and confirm there's no wires underneath the board that'll get messed up from that. You can see I've got the green and orange leads coming up from the existing holes, and those are run here and here on the master volume. And then we've got the green and orange existing wires here that are just heat shrunk off, so they're not doing anything. They're totally inert. And yeah, we should be good to go. I don't think there's going to be any problem having some extra wire with it going nowhere. I don't know 100%, but we will find out once we finish up. So last bit we need to do is just run the leads going to the grids. So we need to keep the color coordinated setup here. So orange will be going to this one and green will be going to this one. So I think what we can do is just run the green and orange same place and just run it along here under the board. So then it's just popping out here and here because the color is a bit unsightly. So I think what we can do is run the orange and green again, wrap those together, follow the same kind of path with the existing one, run it under the board so you don't see it, and then green will just pop out there, and then orange will come over here, which you will see. That way it's kind of minimizing. I mean, I totally recognize the colors like neon versus the stock wire in here, but this is what I got. And it's good wire, good quality wire. So it kind of is what it is. I'm not aware of anybody that makes this more faded color, you know, more pastel color wire. So yeah, I think it's okay. Just wondering, I mean, I could always heat shrink as well. I mean, I could have done that with this too and heat shrunk all of this exposed bit. That probably would have been smarter. I could always easily undo these two and just heat shrink that now that I think about it. So we've got our orange and green run underneath the board here. And we need the orange to terminate here and the green to terminate here. So we've got to unwrap this side of things. All right, so you can't actually really tell at all about the grid wires here and here. So really the only eyesore is right here, which is pretty minor. So at this point, I'm leaning towards just leaving it. Though I do need to redo this. This was just temporary. I do have this, which would fit pretty tightly. Okay. Wow, that ended up being a lot of work that I really just caused all myself. There was no reason for it to be that much work other than just my craziness of wanting to try and keep it looking clean. So to go ahead and follow along what we got here, we've got the wipers. Those are going to the grids of these two sockets, which then have grid stop resistors bridging them with the other sockets. And you can just barely see there's the orange one right here and the green one just poking out right there. So very, very subtle. And then you've got these two connections here, again, following orange with orange. This one will be going over here. And then this green will be going here. And then there's a black lead all by itself, which is going up through there and going right here. So that's how you do a LARMAR Master volume. Now the question is, does it work? How does it sound? Was this a waste of time? Let's find out. In order for us to test this, we have to take all of the tubes out. That way, if there's something wrong with any of the connections, we don't lose any tubes, or worse. And basically what we want to do is bring up the voltage just a little bit. We don't want to go too much. We want to kind of keep it maybe 70, 80 volts, somewhere in that range, because without tubes in it, the amp is unloaded, and so the voltage will be quite a bit higher than it would be with tubes in it, and it could be above the voltage rating of the filter caps. So we just want to be cautious there. Probably, like I said, 70, 80 volts, somewhere in that range should be perfect for this. And then we just want to go ahead and check everywhere. Make sure we're getting negative voltage. All of this we didn't touch. This will be fine. And then we need to confirm over here. So, we've got this supply of negative voltage from here over to here. And this is going here. So make sure all of this is happy. All of the connections are correct. And making sure we're seeing negative voltage here, as well as at the grid pins of all 4 sockets. And they should all basically match. So let's go ahead and turn it on. We'll connect a load to it, even though it's just good practice, honestly, but not super necessary here because we had no tubes in it. So we've got the amp at about 69 volts. Let's go ahead and see our voltage here. So we should see some negative voltage here, negative 22, which means we should see negative 22 over here. We do. And then that means I should see negative 22 over here. And I do. Same over here. And I do. So that's all good to go. Now we got this green lead right here. We should be seeing the same voltage over here. And we do. And check that is going to here. Negative 215. Negative 215. Orange lead, negative 214. Negative 214. So that's all looking good. Now we've got this connection right here. Negative 271. I have to take this off to get a clean look at everything. Negative 27. I should see the same right over here. I do. And then the orange one, negative 27. Negative 27. Negative 27. Okay, so we are getting the correct voltages running through all of the spots it should. Everything is lining up. So now it is safe to turn off, and we will go ahead and put some power tubes in it, slowly bring it up, and then try confirming all of that one more time just to be completely sure, and we'll do a quick audio test. And that's 120. So we're looking at about negative 40 bias voltage. Bias feed is negative 39. Going to the grids, negative 39. From the coupling caps, negative 38.2. All of this looks good. I don't see anything that has me worried. Let's just confirm at the tube sockets here. Negative 39.2. Negative 39.2. Negative 39.2. Negative 39.2. Okay, all of that measures good. So now we can go ahead and hear how it sounds. So let me switch audio, and I'll put a knob on this so I have some idea of where we're at and see how it sounds. So now that we confirmed it works, I want to go ahead and recheck the bias. Now, to me, it did sound a little bit different, and I was curious if I would hear any difference because we went from 100K resistors here for the bias leaks to effectively 220K. This dual gain pot is basically acting as two 220K resistors in this V here versus the 100Ks that were there before. Interesting. I don't really know what to make of that just yet. So we'll have to go ahead and check the bias and then play it some more. But overall, The master volume seems to work. It's definitely very heavy weighted in the 10 to 7 range or so through the aux box, but in person, through a cab, we'll have to test that and see. But either way, it sounded pretty good to me right off the bat. So let's go ahead and lift the chassis up so I can get the bias probe underneath, check what we're running, and make sure everything is happy. So we've got the bias probe out. All of the tubes are connected, and we can go ahead and check one by one. We'll start with tube A, which is this one right where my finger is pointing, the one closest to my right here. And we can see the plate voltage, if I can get it in the camera, 441, and then current is 38.4. So let's throw that into the bias calculator. 68% plate dissipation, basically right on the money on the upper level. Tube B, same deal. So for some reason, tube B is higher plate voltage, even though they're connected directly to each other with a wire. So I don't know why that is. Got to be down to the tube, I guess. So tube B is 455, 34. That one is at 62%. So that's totally fine. Tube C. Plate voltage is 430, let's say 438 and 40.5. And that one is at 71%. So biased a touch hot. And then lastly, tube D here, 439 plate voltage, 31 for the current. This one's biased the coolest at about 54%. So the hot side, we're at about 70%. The cool side, we're about 55%. So there's a bit of a range there, but the way these tubes are biased, you got 2 that are a pair, 2 that are a pair, and the tubes can easily be rearranged to kind of further optimize the bias, but I'm honestly totally happy with that so far, and the bias seems kind of right where I want it to be. So everything's looking good. I think we can go ahead and call it a night now. Got a lot done, and yeah, I'm trying to think of what will be next for you guys in the video. This might be it until I've got a gig in a couple days, and I'm not really gonna have time to do anything other than just play it and make sure it's giggable and reliable. So I'm probably just gonna play it a bunch. But yeah, I think we'll end here, and you guys will probably hear it through the cab next down the line. But thank you so much for watching and sticking around. Got a ton of work done to this amp. And there's still some more stuff to go, but I'm really happy with where we're at so far. So thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And until next time, see ya.